Ever wonder what the real safety net is for those huge, ambitious projects we see? Towering skyscrapers, massive power plants? Well, a lot of it comes down to something called engineering insurance. And no, this isn't just about boring old policies. It's the financial backbone that makes all of it possible. So let's dig into how it actually works.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about just how big the risks are when you're dealing with massive projects. Then, we'll walk through a project's entire life, from the chaos of construction to the day-to-day of keeping it running. We'll even get into the sneaky costs of delays. And finally, we'll see how all these different parts come together to create that complete financial shield.
All right, let's dive into Section 1. To really get a feel for this, let's picture something huge. Imagine you're in charge of building a brand new billion-dollar tech campus. It's this sprawling, massive project, right? From scratch. The scale is just immense, and believe me, so are the risks.
So, what keeps you up at night? What happens if a crane just collapses or a fire breaks out on site? What if a critical delay ends up costing you millions of dollars a week? These aren't just hypotheticals. They're the kind of high-stakes what-ifs that can completely derail a project. It's not just about a broken piece of equipment, it's about blown budgets and shattered timelines. And that chaos, that's exactly what engineering insurance is built to handle.
Okay, so here's the first really important thing to get. You don't just go out and buy one policy called engineering insurance. It's not a one-size-fits-all deal. Instead, it's a super strategic approach that's split into two main phases, basically mirroring the project's life. And each of those phases has its own unique risks and, you guessed it, its own special kind of coverage.
So, what are those two phases? Well, on one hand, you've got what are called project or time policies. Think of this as a one-shot deal, a single policy that protects the entire project during the construction phase. And on the other hand, you have operational or annual policies. These kick in once everything's built and running. They're the ones you renew every year to protect all that installed machinery and equipment. Let's tackle that first phase, construction.
Okay, Section 2. So now we're putting on our hard hats and stepping onto the construction site. This is where the action is, right? This is where you can literally see the risk. You've got heavy machinery all over the place, incredibly complex assembly happening, just so many moving parts.
And the absolute cornerstone policy for this phase, the MVP if you will, is the contractor's all-risk policy. Most people just call it a CAR policy for short. You can think of this as the foundation, the bedrock of insurance for any construction project. It's that main safety net for both the builders and the owners.
Now the name here is a huge clue, all risk. What does that really mean? Well, it pretty much means what it says. The policy is designed to cover basically any sudden and unforeseen physical damage, unless it's something that's very specifically excluded in the fine print. So we're talking about everything from fires and theft to even things like bad workmanship. And what's really crucial is that it also covers third-party liability. So if your construction work accidentally damages the building next door, you're covered. That's a big one.
So you might be wondering, how much do you actually insure the project for? Just the cost of the materials? Nope. That's where this term sum insured comes in. And it's not just the price of steel and concrete. It's the total, final, completely erected value of the property. That includes freight, customs duties, labor, the whole shebang. Basically, from day one, you're protecting the final finished value of the entire project.
But hold on. All risk doesn't literally mean every single possible risk in the universe. There are always some key exclusions. For example, insurance isn't going to cover things like war or nuclear events. And, this should be obvious, it won't cover willful negligence. You can't just set your own project on fire and expect a check. But what's really important to note is that it also typically excludes things like faulty design and those financial losses you get from delays. And we're definitely going to circle back to that last one.
All right, Section 3, let's hit the fast-forward button. The construction is done. Our billion-dollar tech campus is finished. The lights are on, the servers are humming. It's a living, breathing operation. So the construction risks are in the rearview mirror. But now we have a whole new set of risks to deal with, operational risks. So once a project goes live, the whole insurance game changes. You need those operational policies we mentioned. Let's look at a few. You've got machinery breakdown, or MB. That's for when, say, the main HVAC compressor for the whole campus suddenly dies. Then there's boiler and pressure plant insurance, or BPP. That covers a nightmare scenario like a high-pressure boiler exploding. And for our tech campus, this next one is the big one, electronic equipment insurance, or EEI. This is all-risk coverage for the real heart of the operation, the computers, the data centers. Think about a massive power surge frying an entire rack of servers. EEI is what saves you there. Now here's a little practical detail you'll always find in these policies: the excess, or what you might call a deductible. When something breaks, you, the insured, usually have to cover a small piece of the cost yourself. For a machinery breakdown policy, a pretty common figure for that excess is about 1% of whatever the item's value is. It's basically a form of cost sharing. It makes sure that everyone has a little skin in the game when it comes to taking care of the equipment.
Okay, on to Section 4. So far, we've really been talking about physical stuff breaking, right? A machine fails, a structure gets damaged. But here's the thing. Sometimes the biggest, most painful financial loss isn't the cost of the repair itself. No, it's the cost of the time you lose while you're waiting for that repair to happen. The clock is ticking and every second costs money.
Yeah, let's jump back to our construction site for a second. Imagine that fire we talked about. It damages a key part of the building. The car policy kicks in and pays to replace it. Great. But because of that fire, your grand opening is now delayed by 6 months. That's 6 months with no tenants, no revenue, no profit, just bills piling up. That massive financial ripple effect, that's what we call a consequential loss.
And this is where a very special type of insurance comes into play. It's called Advance Loss of Profit, or ALOP. You usually take this policy out right alongside your main car policy, and its entire job is to cover the owner's financial losses. We're talking lost gross profit, fixed costs that you still have to pay, all the money that's bleeding out during that delay. It's not insurance for your stuff, it's insurance for your timeline. It's a game changer.
So when does this actual AOP policy actually pay out? It pays out during what's called the indemnity period. The easiest way to think about this is it's the exact window of the delay. The clock on the indemnity period starts ticking on the day the project was supposed to be finished, and it stops the second it's actually completed and handed over. The policy is designed to cover your financial bleeding, but only during that very specific slice of lost time.
All right, let's pull all these threads together in our final section. We've talked about insurance for the construction phase, for the operational phase, and even for those costly delays. So now let's step back and look at the whole picture.
So if there's one thing to remember from all this, it's this. Engineering insurance isn't just one policy you buy off a shelf. It's really a strategic ecosystem of protection. You have the KR policy that shields the project while it's being built. Then you have the operational policies like MB and EEI that protect it once it's up and running. And you have ALOP, which protects your bottom line from delays. When you put them all together, they create this seamless, powerful financial shield.
But okay, what happens when disaster actually strikes and you need to make a claim? How does that work? Well, it's actually pretty logical. Step 1, they assess the damage to figure out how bad it is. Step 2, they decide if it can be repaired. If the answer is yes, then it's a partial loss, and the policy pays to restore it to the exact condition it was in before the incident. But if the repair costs more than the item is actually worth, it's declared a total loss. In that case, the policy pays out its actual value from the moment right before it broke.
And this brings us to a really critical point, something you'll see buried in the fine print. The policy says it won't cover alterations, additions, and/or improvements. What that means is that insurance is there to make you whole again, to put you back where you were. It's not there to pay for an upgrade. So if a 5-year-old machine breaks, the policy pays to fix that 5-year-old machine. It doesn't buy you the brand new top-of-the-line model.
So as we've seen, any big project is just this constantly evolving journey of risk, all the way from the first blueprint to the final day of operation. So the real question isn't just, do you have insurance? The real question is your project truly covered? Do you have the right layers of protection for the right phase of the project? Because at the end of the day, the biggest risk is always the one you didn't see coming.